This week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, with agriculture broadcaster Orion Samuelson and yours truly, Max Armstrong, and featuring agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier. This week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone. Coming up on this weekend's broadcast, it's a weekend of gluttonous consumption of our agriculture products. Oh, and there are some significant government numbers. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this weekend's broadcast. Mr. Pearson will be here momentarily because of the USDA reports that came out the other day. He'll analyze those with a friend of ours. They'll take a look at what's going on in terms of supply and demand of our grain crops. But one thing we note is this is a big consumption weekend. I believe it's the biggest watermelon consumption weekend of the year, around the 4th of July. And then you think of all of the other agriculture products. You have the steaks, the chops, the burgers, the hot dogs. The Hot Dog and Sausage Council has tabulated the numbers, and they say on Independence Day we have about 150 million hot dogs consumed. They say that's enough to stretch from the nation's capital to Los Angeles more than 5 times. That period, Memorial Day to Labor Day, it's hot dog season. 7 billion consumed. You figure that out, that's something like 818 hot dogs consumed every second in the summertime in the United States. Oh, and by the way, let us not forget, we're moving in through Ice Cream Month now. U.S. per capita consumption of ice cream, dairy farmers should love this, per capita consumption is 22 pounds, they say. And of course, from a production standpoint on the farm, the 4th of July tends to be a critical time as well, something that Ray Brownfield knows so well. Our friend who keeps track of what's going on in the ag real estate market, LandPro LLC. Yeah, you must be one of the busiest guys in the world these days.
It's fantastic. I was telling somebody else today, I'm probably as old as dirt, and somebody said, Ray, you're probably right about this. I have never seen the agricultural real estate market ever in my whole career this aggressive. Never.
The prices just seem to keep on climbing.
They do, and there's good reason for that. I believe there's been a fair amount of cash come into the agricultural sector in the last couple of years. Some pretty nice government payments in many cases, which we cash the checks. And also, we've got low interest rates, which until probably mid-22 maybe, that'll change perhaps. Not much on the markets. It's a supply-demand type ratio here. And it's a good long-term investment, a hedge against inflation. And we're headed for inflation, as we know. So there's a lot of reasons people are seeking land. It's just really something they want. And as I say, not much there, so that creates more demand.
It's the perfect storm, it seems. And farmers are still active buyers, correct?
They are, and it's good. I'm glad that they are. Frankly, if it's a join into them, which is usually the case, maybe smaller acreages, maybe not, they're very competitive buyers. It makes sense to them for their long term, for their families, for their states, long-term investment. That's what they want, that's what they know, and that's what we hope they can own.
With the tax changes hanging out there, what effect has that had? Has that shoved more people to the door, or were they just too late to do this?
What we know is maybe coming out of Washington, D.C., and yet to be known, but probably there will be changes in basis, maybe in the capital gains taxes, estate taxes. We think that's got people really thinking. The fact is, we have people talking to us about listings right now just because of that concern, and they're hoping it's not retroactive. And we hope it's not either. So it does have people concerned and really thinking seriously about maybe it is time to think about selling their farmland.
The fund investors, very active?
No, not necessarily. They haven't been for quite some time. We see Argentines, yes, we do see them, and they've been coming to this country for quite some time. It's more like Argentina. They like what they see here. They like larger acreages, and yes, that is probably one of the few groups I've seen that's actively involved.
I may have misspoke. You're addressing foreign investment, right?
Yes.
You know, there was a time, I remember when that had to be reported on an annual basis by the federal government. So we had a pretty good grasp. Is that not done anymore? I haven't seen a report on this in years.
It is. It still has to be. USDA tracks it. If in each county, when you sign up to any government programs, they have to report it that there's foreign ownership. So yeah, it's out there, but it's just not terribly big at this point in time.
the funds, I guess, the Wall Street crowd I'm talking about, have they piled a lot of money, and do they continue to do so?
They do. They're there. They really are usually on larger tracts. The numbers have to work. I mean, it's strictly return on investment, long term, and it's usually a 10 to 15-year hold because of how it's structured. They do at some point in time have to sell those properties out. So they're there. They're very judicious. They do a lot of good work, and when it comes time to buy a farm.
I have some more questions for you. I want to talk about the ramifications of sky-high land prices. I want to do that a little bit later. Don't go far away.
Okay.
We need to take a look at some of the numbers the USDA brought forward this week. Mr. Pearson, there's somebody with you that we know so well, and you have plenty to talk about from what the government showed us earlier this week.
You bet, Max. We are certainly talking to a man who is very plugged into these numbers, and that's Dale Dirkholz of Grain Cycles. Dale, earlier this week, we had two reports come out from the USDA. We saw planting intentions, taking a look at what might have actually gone in the ground across the country. And we also had quarterly grain stocks, looking at what's left in the bins, both on farmers' home sites and at elevators. Let's start with the quarterly grain stocks right off the bat. Dale, looking at the corn number, it came in fairly well in line with analyst expectations. On corn, was there anything that surprised you with the quarterly grain stocks report?
Actually, personally, I was looking for a number that was a little bit larger than what the trade was looking for. And to me, the feed and residual number seems to be high given the stocks level that we're working right now. And that either indicates, well, we're either feeding more cattle or there's something amiss when we go back to last year's production number for corn. And if that residual is high, it would suggest that, that production number could come down a little bit here more.
That makes some sense. Dale, one of the numbers that jumped out at me was USDA does make a habit of differentiating whether the grain is stored on farm or at commercial elevators. And they reported just a little bit over 1.75 billion bushels still held on farms. Dale, when you take a look at the cash market across the countryside, do you think we really have almost 2 billion bushels still sitting around in farmers' hands?
Some of that may be committed. That we don't know because that's just an inventory in the bin, and we don't know, if farmers have contracted for summer delivery or something, So, we don't know exactly, let's call it ownership. But I'm not really surprised at this point because farmers have pretty much through the whole game stayed pretty steadfastly bullish, although, the markets we've had since the early part of May in the corn market has kind of rattled their nerves a little bit here. And then of recent, we've had some of these renewable fuel rulings, come out that have kind of unnerved them. But I think farmers have always been holding back maybe more than a little bit in here, thinking, I'm going to play a little bit of a gamble here. And frankly, their income, because prices have been high this year, have kept their cash flow needs met and allowed them to kind of hold on to a little bit extra of that inventory. So I guess that doesn't surprise me wholeheartedly.
Well, that does make some sense. We do see farmers flush with cash making some sales earlier in the year, maybe keeping a little powder dry if they got burned last year, marketing their physical a little too aggressively early on when this rally started moving. Well, let's take a look at soybeans. Quarterly stocks numbers came out. They've got us at just about 770 million bushels of beans. Dale, that's half the quarterly grain stocks we had in beans just a year ago. So it does seem like the demand out there in the bean market's very real.
Yeah, it has been, and I think that's the thing we've got to reach back to. It wasn't that much of a surprise to the trade, pretty close to what they were expecting, a little bit less. The way I look at numbers are really pretty much on target with what I was expecting for bean stocks. But we've got to actually remember, the weekly export numbers we're seeing now in terms of shipments and these monthly crush numbers we're getting in here both suggest demand is a little bit of a soft item at this point, and even the USDA here a month ago went and bumped up their expectation for that ending stocks on soybeans just slightly. But it said, these demand pulls that have been a part of this market have really kind of weakened on beans. Doesn't say we're going to break down anywhere. And certainly until we get a new crop in the bin, probably isn't going to break down a whole lot. But it does suggest, demand has weakened with the higher prices.
Well, and that's what higher prices are supposed to do, Dale, right? They drive us up to a point, they ration demand, and we see some purchases pull back, maybe wait for a little better opportunity down the line.
Yeah, that really is the story. It's basically, high prices beget weakening demand. It's like low prices solve the problem because they tend to rein in the supply ingredient and encourage demand, but high prices do just the opposite, which, looking at the planting numbers, which we'll talk about a little bit later, kind of surprised me. But yes, demand is weakening a little bit in here because of the high prices we're seeing and have seen now for the past few months.
Absolutely. We'll be back for more with Dale Dirkholz. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by the Soybean Checkoff. Tips, videos, how-tos, and more. If it has to do with ag tech, you'll find it in the Tech Tool Shed, your unbiased one-stop resource. And we're back talking USDA reports with our good friend Dale Dirkholz. Dale, taking a look at this acreage report, both corn and soybeans came in below the average trade analyst expectation. Where do you fall on your level of surprise based on this USDA acreage report? Let's talk corn right off the bat. 92.7 million acres coming from USDA. Do you buy it?
I guess the first place I want to start really isn't any particular item, whether it's corn, soybeans, wheat, or cotton, and it's going back and looking at the total. I haven't looked at the state-by-state breakdown in these yet, but I'm plugging in about 2 million acres for prevent plant because we really didn't have any serious problems this year, and I think that's a fair number. But my total for 16 different crops planted this year is 311 million acres, and that's down from last year's 314 million acres. In the last 5 years, we've ranged anywhere from around 314 on the low side to 315 on the high side. And I guess I kind of scratch my head, and I think about the fact that we have had extraordinarily high prices this spring. We've had farmers being told we have demand from China as far as the eye can see, and the rest of the demand is going to hold up at reasonably high levels. We've had crop problems down in Brazil. Of this week, we had frost issues down there. And yet farmers are going to plant fewer acres. And I find that really a stretch at this point. I mean, maybe it does turn out to be true. The thing that I know about this, though, is that the first time we really get a check on this is going to be the first go round of FSA numbers on acreage that we'll see in August. And those are still going to be a little preliminary, so maybe we have to rely on September and October. But those August preliminary acreage numbers may tell us a little bit about how good these numbers are. So the first thing I looked at was my whole overall acreage number. I think that's where you always have to start.
Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. All of these acres, corn, beans, wheat, barley, oats, et cetera, they're all coming out of the vast pool, which is America's arable ground. Dale, and even though we did see the acreage, the planted acreage come in below analyst expectations, corn was about 1 million below, soybeans were down a little bit as well. It is still an increase over the March planting intentions out of USDA. So I've got to imagine that a lot of folks in the trade, their balance sheets are getting a little bit bigger after this report. And we'll probably use these numbers until we get that update from FSA in August. Would that be right?
Well, the bean number coming in the same, and you look at it, where the analyst expectations were, with corn, we were up close to 94 million. With beans, we were up there, a little over 89 million acres. A lot of those private balance sheets that people had been putting together really were based upon those, not the March USDA numbers, because a lot of people looked at that. And again, back in March, we had this loss, which was a little bit larger in total acres than what this one implies. You had a lot of people thinking, yeah, we're probably still going to see some bigger acreage numbers with these high prices when we see the report here in June, and now we don't. So we're going to have to find everybody across the board, corn and beans in particular, sitting down and pushing a pencil on those balance sheets once again and shrinking them down a little bit, with the acreage numbers we have here today, because with planting going as well as it did this year, and certainly compared to the last 2 years, it was really good. We didn't have really huge wet issues. We had cold weather as much as anything middle part of May, but not enough to not plant. We didn't have issues that would really prevent acres from being planted on a broad scale, and dry soils don't count in that. They have to be wet.
Yep.
And so everybody's going to have to go back and start putting together some tighter balance sheets looking forward into 21, 22 crops.
You bet we'll have to sharpen those pencils. Folks, that's our friend Dale Dirkholz from Grain Cycles.
Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform, combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability. One thing we know about Chad Colby from his weekly reports is, yes, he loves the technology, but the equipment needs to have the speed and the power. So important to the growers, to be sure. And that's not just in planting or in harvest, but also in the application season.
Do you do your own application on your farming operation? If so, you are going to love this week's tech segment. Over the past couple years, we've done many stories on the efficiencies and new technology in our application equipment. Inside the cabs, it's not a surprise if you haven't been in one lately. You're going to see all kinds of computer stuff that can do anything basically that you can imagine. From transfer data back and forth, automatic boom control, not a surprise. But a good friend of mine who spent generations in this business has always told me the weak link isn't the truck getting the product to the field like you see here. It's not putting the product on. It's transferring the product from the truck to the machine. So check this out. This is a 3x3 pump with an 8 horsepower engine. You can see that hose feeding the machine right here. It's a 3-inch line, and up on the rogator beyond the machine, that's 4-inch plumbing behind that. So this spring, my friend was getting a new transfer truck, and he was getting ready to order his pump, and he said, you know what, I'm going to get the next one bigger. We've got to figure out a way to do this faster. It's got a 24 horsepower engine, and it's got 4-inch inlet and 4-inch outlet. Now, he's downsized that to 3-inch. He wanted to keep that loading hose the same size, so it was easy to handle for the guys that run the trucks. I've got an example for you of just how fast this is. Here's real time how quick it takes to load 100 gallons of product in just 10 seconds. In a day's working time in the field, that time savings is going to equal an extra hour of application, and that's a big deal. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
We appreciate Mr. Colby's ag tech expertise that he shares each weekend here on This Week in Agribusiness. Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness as we take time to visit with a couple of farm broadcaster friends this weekend. Let's head to Wisconsin, America's Dairyland at Durand, Wisconsin. WRDN AM and FM, Brian Winnekins isn't just the announcer, he owns the whole doggone shooting match. How have you been, Brian?
Doing well. It's been busy, a busy spring planting season and a busy June dairy month compared to a year ago, as we've had dairy breakfasts all across the listening area this year.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. How are your dairy farmers doing?
They're doing pretty good. We've been blessed with enough rain that we haven't had severe drought conditions. The rain has come at a pretty good time. A lot of first crop is in, and it looked pretty good. Second crop is also starting to be brought off a few fields as well. But overall, at least for us here in western Wisconsin, we're doing pretty good.
We notice production is climbing, to be sure, in that most recent USDA report. Is anybody worried about that too much product out there soon?
There is a little bit of nervousness about it, but boy, the demand has been really high too, especially from last year with the cheese demand. And there's some that do think that, you know, maybe the demand will help with some of the supply. But yes, dairy farmers are really good at doing this. You know, when they get a market signal saying, hey, we need more milk, they know how to do that.
They really do. And it's not just a matter of adding cows. They're increasing the output per cow too, aren't they, Brian?
That's been a big thing. You know, we haven't here in Wisconsin seen a large increase in the number of head, but we always see an increase in production per cow. And that's really a tribute to the dairy farmers on how they're able to maximize production with their herds.
You had a visit in the region from the President of the United States this week. President Biden did go to, I believe it was La Crosse, not too far from you.
Yes, he was in La Crosse on Tuesday. Initially, this was supposed to be more of an agriculture and rural economy visit. Secretary Vilsack was supposed to join him, and they were going to be at a couple of farms on St. Joseph Ridge. to talk about dairy and even potentially the cattle markets. At the last minute, that all changed because of the infrastructure bill, that agreement that was reached. And so he just ended up being in the city of La Crosse at the La Crosse Municipal Transit Utilities main garage.
Now, he did mention farmers, correct?
He did really at one point talking about the rural broadband and high-speed internet and kind of talked about the old REA, the electrification of rural America, and kind of said this is just like that with rural broadband, and it's needed now for all farmers to be able to do their jobs, precision agriculture, keeping up to date on markets and news, and also doing marketing.
Well, as you know so well, many of our producers need that sooner rather than later out there, the high-speed capabilities. Great to visit with you as always, sir. Those folks can listen to you over the internet as well as over the air on WRDN, AM and FM. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Max.
Now, we'll go about 160 miles or so away from Durand, Wisconsin. Let's go to Albany, Minnesota. KASM Radio. That's the Chasm. And here he is, the farm voice of that great station. Joe Gill, it's good to see you.
Great to see you, Max. Great to be with you.
We follow your post on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm always interested in what you're having for breakfast. You share that with your viewers there. Yeah, it's always the breakfast of champions.
Well, 90% of the time it's donuts. It's just a matter if it's glazed or sprinkled. That's the main question. So.
And dairy products, too, I've noticed. You pay tribute to the dairy industry.
You can't go a day without a big carton of chocolate milk or a big bottle of chocolate milk, I like to say.
Hey, I have to ask you, I posted this on Twitter the other day, asking if producers have seen more fawns this spring, because I have seen more in places where I've traveled, ranging from eastern Iowa to central North Carolina, alive and those who have been killed along the roadways. What have you seen?
It's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up, because there has seemed to be an increased number you see in the roads when you're driving that have been hit by vehicles. But on my way in, I drive 25 miles one way each day, and just about every day you see one, if not two deer, and some of those fawns too. It's odd, but it seems like that's a good, strong population right now.
Yeah, I just wonder about that. But that's something to discuss another time. How are the crops looking around you? You've been quite dry, haven't you?
Yes, we have, Max. In May, just to give you a little perspective, under 2 inches of total rainfall in May. Same story for June. We haven't reached that 2-inch mark right now. As far as corn, some corn you can see shoulder high. In other areas, corn is about knee high. And as far as alfalfa, a lot of folks either just completed second crop or working on that second crop right now.
Is that about on the right timetable for that forage crop? Is that about where they would ordinarily be at this time in hay?
Yeah, maybe a week or two behind schedule, but nothing too dramatic. It's just been basically lack of rainfall. But I had one farmer tell me that the time period from first crop to second crop was 21 days, so that was a pretty quick turnaround. That
is. How are the infestations of insects there? They can be pretty tough in dry years, it seems.
The last 5 days, that's been the big story, especially in alfalfa. They said a lot of bugs. If folks didn't work ahead and spray, or didn't quickly spray after it was indicated or detected, they had trouble, and it caused a lot of issues on the second crop for a lot of folks. Some extension experts, too, are also looking at soybeans and the nematodes, too. They're expecting they're going to be a big issue for folks.
You keep the folks informed there, Joe. Thanks for joining us this weekend on This Week in Agribusiness. Joe Gill, Albany, Minnesota, at Chasm, KASM. There's more coming up here. Stay with us. This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone. Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. We hope it's a great, safe weekend for you. We welcome back here a good friend of ours, Ray Brownfield. As we were visiting a little bit earlier about the farmland situation, give us a feel for how much farmland values have gone up in the heartland of the country.
Really, since January, it's a range, but maybe 10 to 15%, which has been just unknown. We've never seen that kind of an upbeat since maybe 12 and 13, and even then it wasn't, I don't think, that quite aggressive. We're seeing land right now, good quality, well-drained ground, 14 to 17,000 an acre in some cases.
Pure farmland.
Pure
this
farmland,
isn't
not for
no opportunity
development.
for development.
No. And it's just strictly good, well-drained, probably Class A ground. And even a lesser quality, the B quality, is probably in the $10,000 to $12,000 an acre bracket. So you say, how does this work? And that's the question.
There are different things going on in other parts of the country. We noticed the New York Times made note the other day of what's happening in California in a not very hospitable climate for agriculture. And I'm not just talking about the outside weather. No. It's a tough place to farm, isn't it?
It is. A lot of regulations out there, water issues. I really feel sorry for those people out there because there's a lot of crops going to be pushed. Yeah. They don't have the water to make it work. And
exactly.
It's going to be terrible.
With these kinds of elevated farmland prices in the heart of the United States, what are some of the negative ramifications? One thing I think about is that farmland rental rate is going to be elevated if we still have strong crop prospects and good, strong commodity prices come fall.
And they will be. We've seen this before. It goes in cycles. I think that we need to remember, though, that input costs are going up as well. Seed corn, fertilizer, all that. So when we get into the rental business, which we do, I do see it increasing for a period of time. How long, nobody knows. But with these kind of commodity prices, which I think are going to be with us for a while, it appears, I think into 22 probably, we'll see the cash rents go up, or any kind of rental situation, I think, will go up this fall for the next year for sure.
One thing that strikes me is the challenge that is out there for that young operator, that beginning farmer who wants to get in the business. He or she must have a big helping hand from the generation ahead of them.
They need to. They're for the small.
Or a mentor.
A mentor, yeah, or somebody that they can hook into, which we do see, which we're really happy to see.
Don't you love seeing that kind of a thing?
Oh, I love it.
When an older farmer who's stepping out can identify that younger producer?
In fact, in our business, in the farm management side, we're trying to be right to everybody, but we do favor that. If we see a father-son or a father-daughter, we see ladies coming into the business, which is great as well, some young girls. I love to see this. It doesn't matter, just be there. And for the long term, we need that sustainability in agriculture. But it is tough because the price for people, young people to get in, to get the credit they need to do, it's difficult. There are farm loans for younger farmers getting into smaller acreages, which is a good thing.
You're always upbeat when you come in here. We appreciate that. Always good to see you, Ray.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Ray Brownfield. His firm is Land Pro LLC. Now, agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier brings us his farm weather forecast for the nation for the week ahead. It's presented by Pivot BioProven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, whether or not. Well, we're not sure where he is. He's not in the studio. I guess he's on vacation. Greg, where in the world are you?
But still working, you know. I haven't been on vacation doing the weather business here since I think I was age 14. Why quit now? Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, on a pier extending out to sea here. That's where some folks think the weather god had turned up once in a while. But it's been delightful here. 80s by day, 70s at night. Yeah, Danny came ashore here a couple of days ago, south towards the South Carolina coast.
Well, let's start in the Northwest to take a look at your maps because that's where it's been so hot. Will that continue?
Yeah, boy, I tell you, there's been record-setting stories because of too much rain in the Corn Belt, way too much heat in the northwestern part of the country. Here are the maps and charts early in the week across the Pacific Northwest. The heat ridge is still locked into position there, 110 to 115 or higher east of the Rogue River Basin. Willamette Valley, remember, that is a dire drought area, maybe a dry-based thunderstorm. You know those things. Those things tend to breed thunderstorms, and they are lightning producers and fire producers. Late in the week, little change. Front offshore, any thunderstorm activity that really reaches the ground, if you will, big sky country and across parts of the Dakotas. Into the southwestern sections of the country, we're rolling into the July mode, and I tell you, it ought to be raining, and it will be in a heavy quantity and fashion across parts of New Mexico, Colorado. Drought areas will get some additional relief. Could be all or nothing there. Across the valleys of California, the heat continues on, and seasonal heat across a bunch of the plain states as they try to wind up winter wheat harvest in some of those wetter areas. Late in the week, little change. Front approaches California of no consequence. The heat is and the humidity, along with the monsoon moisture over the southwestern states. A couple of storms may work into parts of the central and southern high plains.
Down through the heart of the country, the faucet has been shut off for some, and others have had way too much rain.
That's right. Hopefully this week, though, Max, across the northern plains and upper Midwest, a couple of fronts on the maps and charts here. They'll generate showers and thunderstorms over some of the still driest reaches of the Corn Belt. And, of course, it's been in excess mode across areas of Missouri, points to the east, northeast, where more big rains are forecast there this week, and a stagnant weather pattern. And throw into the picture, as well as a little bit of a weak tropical disturbance, the potential for some additional flooding. Later on, we go to the southern plains, and there's another one of these tropical lows, Bay, Campeche, Western Gulf, and deep tropical moisture, wet grounds, these showers and thunderstorms, slow movers and soakers, southeastern plains, lower Mississippi Valley. Little change there. The wet weather pattern continues out of the southern plains late in the week.
What do you see along that east coast area where you are?
Well, out here, yeah, actually dryness and drought continue in the northeast of New England onto the charts there, and some relief in the form of a couple of showers and thunderstorms. But note that warm front across the heart of the Corn Belt, and plenty of warmth and humidity. It lights up shower and thunderstorm activity along with a weak tropical system out towards the Ozarks. And so once again, it's haves versus have-nots. Literally over the past week to 10 days, we've gone from a drought to a flood in some of these Corn Belt locales, but it continues on out northwest, back into drier and comfortable air for the northeast of New England. Southeastern portions of the country, the tropics are getting active. You expect showers and thunderstorms, Texas into the lower Mississippi Valley, and with time, as the mid to late week wears on, more moisture expected in the southeastern portion of the country.
Now, Greg Soye is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country. Presented by Pivot Bio Proven. Visit pivotbio.com to find a representative near you. First of all, Greg, we want to thank the technical assistance provided by the Solier boys, and especially that they didn't tilt down to show us the Speedo. We don't need that.
I tell you, if I was in a Speedo out here on the pier, the beaches would be cleared. My goodness. But no, we are in full regalia here, as we ought to be here for this weekend agribusiness. But thank you for the heads up, and I'll pass it along to the road crew here.
Let's go to your precipitation map. Who will have rain in the week ahead?
The folks who have received rain, they get more rain. Unfortunately, those who have not will get maybe some relief. It might be coming too late to matter, but here it is out of the precipitation of the rainfall chart. Good, solid coverage, 1 to 2. And of course, that's generally a conservative number we work with. If you wanted some of the heavier thunderstorms, you could double some of those amounts. They extend southward into the heart of the Corn Belt and the certainly flooded out areas as well. Note the tropical rains, Gulf Coast, and note the parade of tropical weak systems. We don't think they're named, but they'll accentuate the rainfall to the Ohio Valley. A couple of monsoon storms across the southwest, maybe some fair coverage moisture, but at a price, lightning potential in the northwestern part of the country, Max.
Well, for the week of July 12, will it feel like the heart of summer?
It will across a good part of the west and southwest on through the upper Midwest and parts of the northeast of New England. Normal temperatures across the heart of the Corn Belt. Unusual, though, that's because of clouds, wet grounds, and, of course, shower and thunderstorm activity below over the deep south and southeastern part of the country. Note the monsoon moisture across West Texas and the southwestern states. Still wet weather, a beam of the Ozarks to the Great Lakes and points out of the east. Back to increasing dry time, northern plains on westward. And a busy tropical pattern could continue on as well.
The week of July 19, what do you see?
From a temperature standpoint here, the heat is focused over the northern and central plains, I should say Rockies and parts of the plains. Warmth into the northeast of New England, still cooler than average, relatively speaking, from about the Ohio on southward. From there on south to the east, some remnant tropical moisture and expanding dry time. That could be of good news for some of these waterlogged areas in the western Corn Belt. Mid-Mississippi Valley does extend into the Pacific Northwest.
Right in that county fair season, that week of July 19th, will it be lemonade shake-up weather?
Oh, I'm sure there are going to be always longer lines at those beverage stands any time to get together those county and state fairs. And, temperatures are a little above average across the eastern Corn Belt. Hot weather, though, long lines running from the Twin Cities to the Pacific Northwest. Still a bit cooler than average, if you will, but high humidity over the deep south and southeastern portion of the country. Rainfall, still a healthy monsoon setup over the desert southwest. That's all or nothing. More flooding rain and a busy tropical pattern down through Texas, the Gulf Coast, and the rains will be moving out of the Ohio with expanding dry time for the northern and western Corn Belt. Otherwise, eastern section of the complex about normal in the rainfall department.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
Well, some of us say we work better under pressure, and I want to tell you, some tractor restorers are under pressure now. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Store Lock Tool Cabinets. Make plans to visit them at the farm shows later this summer at Rantoul and Decatur, Illinois. Store Lock. Yeah, go to the website, storelock.com. Well, I guess for some of us, it's a rationalization of procrastination. We put things off, but we say we work better under pressure. Well, that may not be the reason for some folks, but they're under pressure to restore tractors right now. Take a look at this Alice Chalmers that's in the process of restoration. Logan Lanou in Illinois is working with a sense of dedication, I guess you would say, because this isn't just any Alice. This one, made in 1970, was owned by Logan's grandfather. His granddad used it for many years, and it was Logan's plan to ask his grandfather if he could buy the old Alice. But his granddad passed away before that day. So earlier this year, Logan bought the tractor from his grandmother, and the race was on to get it fixed up. This special to him, Alice Chalmers 220, made 51 years ago. You may see it hooked to a plow at Rantoul in August. This tractor from Martinton, Illinois. Well, Mark Stock has some older tractors in the lineup coming up in the next few days, too. Here's his report from Big Iron Auctions.
Well, happy 4th of July, Max, and everybody out there. Enjoy this special holiday weekend. We do want to remind everybody, July the 7th, we're back in the saddle again, folks, with over 1,300 items selling to the highest bidder on BigIron.com. Now, Rick Bodine of Syracuse, Nebraska, is selling his tractor collection, which includes a 1955 Oliver Super 88 row crop tractor. He's got a 1948 Oliver row crop 77. He's got a 1954 McCormick Farmall Super MTA. Plus, he's got a McCormick 350, 450, and a 560. These tractors have been meticulously restored. Now, Aaron Andra is retiring from Havens, Kansas. Their auction features a 2016 Case IH Farmall 115U mechanical front tractor with a loader. They've also got a 2020 Bush Hog 7-foot 3-point shredder and a 2012 Palco Cattle Boss portable livestock tub and chute combo. Thomas G. and Jacqueline J. Fulton Trust Estate is taking place on July the 7th by Liberty, Nebraska. They've also got a 2018 Rhino Flex Wing Rotary Cutter. Check out Wirtz Brothers, Whitmore, Iowa, selling a John Deere 1770 24-row 30 planter and a Great Plains Series 7 55-foot field cultivator. And Rocky Mountain Pumpkin Ranch out of Longmont, Colorado, selling a 2019 Western Star tandem axle truck with a silage box and hoist with only 4,200 miles. It'll be a big sale on July the 7th.
The FFA Chapter Tribute is sponsored by Nationwide, the #1 farm insurer in the country. To register your FFA chapter, go to nationwidesupportsffa.com. That's nationwidesupportsffa.com. Nationwide, we stand for you. Georgia is our destination as we visited with an FFA member this week, a state officer in the Georgia organization, recently retired, I understand, right, Sarah Harper?
Yes, sir. Recently retired.
But you must have enjoyed that experience as a regional vice president of the organization immensely. Tell us what that was like.
So state office was an amazing experience, from being elected on the team last May to actually being able to retire this past April and pass on the jackets to that new group of students. It was very different than last or previous years. Our team had to go through some mental barriers to get past that, because we knew that this year wasn't going to be different, but we knew that when we were signing up. And so it was basically getting into that mental image that we are leading this organization through this difficult time, and knowing that we're going to be able to change the future of FFA with what we can do with virtual platforms and engaging those students that may not be able to go to those events that are in person normally.
Finally, your career path. What path do you think you will choose?
Well, I'm heading to Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College this fall. And right now I am majoring in agriculture education. And I plan to possibly work with a company alongside that, or maybe with a national FFA organization in the future. That's what I really hope to do, to be able to continue and work with students that want to make a difference in the world around them through agriculture, and being able to promote those leadership skills. And that's something that I really look forward to doing possibly in the future, if that is the path for me.
I'm sure you'll do well. Sarah Harper, thank you for joining us this weekend. We appreciate it. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sarah Harper from the Georgia FFA.
Now, Samuelson Says. Insight and commentary from Orion Samuelson.
I want to thank one of my viewers for providing me with the subject for this week's Samuelson Says. It's one of my favorites, having to do with correct food labeling. I don't know who wrote the article, but it was published in Farmer's Girl magazine, and let me share the story with you. Food labeling is confusing, but do not be deceived. When orange juice says it's non-GMO, please recognize that all oranges are non-GMO. The only potential GMO products in the U.S. are papayas, corn, alfalfa, soybeans, cotton, potatoes, squash, canola, sugar beets, and apples. When organic milk is labeled antibiotic-free, remember that all dairy products, including milk, are always antibiotic-free. Same applies to meat. Those bananas advertised as cholesterol-free, well, that's because all bananas are cholesterol-free. And when a jar of peanuts says it's made in a plant that processes peanuts, just use your common sense and roll your eyes. When a bag of apples says it's gluten-free, remember that gluten comes from wheat. When you see a Facebook post that talks about hormones in beef, please understand that an 8-ounce serving of beef has 2 to 3 nanograms of estrogen. All living things produce estrogen. It's just science. And when that carton of eggs says that they came from vegetarian-fed chickens, don't forget that chickens are naturally omnivores. So yes, eat healthy, but don't be swayed by deceptive advertising. So be informed. No farms, no food. Know your farmers and know your food. My thoughts on Samuelson Says.
And a countdown is underway, to be sure, to those two big shows coming up the end of the summer, the Farm Progress Show, and the weekend before that, the Half Century of Progress. Just a little more than 50 days until that Half Century Show, the biggest vintage farm equipment show in America. Tim Hartman visited with me about it because he's with Beck's Hybrids. They are a major sponsor of this Half Century Show, the 10th one.
We at Beck's are extremely excited as well to be part of this. As we went through this process of putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, Max, we had the opportunity to visit with the board, or those that are in charge of putting this show on. And from the first meeting that we had with them, just their passion, their excitement for what they do to make this all possible, it was evident that we also wanted to be a part of that too. As you know, a lot of us at Beck's have that same passion for agriculture and serving farmers, and it just made a lot of sense for Beck's to come alongside that team there and help make that all happen. And definitely looking forward to the end of August when that show starts.
August 26th through the 29th. We are looking forward to it, to be sure. Beck's is a company that has a rich family heritage. Still family owned and operated, correct?
That's correct. Yep. So the Beck family still owns Beck's Hybrids, still independent, still family owned. The family goes to work there every day. A lot of them are still very much involved in the family business through different parts of Beck's Hybrids, and definitely has a passion for agriculture and plans to continue to remain independent and family owned into the future as well.
When we've been around the folks in the Beck's family, Sonny, Scott, you know, there's such a positive, if you will, positive vibe. You know, it's they're not a downer bunch. They're an optimistic bunch. They're people you enjoy being around, and it's very similar with the event that we call the Half Century of Progress, I must say.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's our mission at Beck's Hybrids is to help farmers succeed, and that's what the family leads by example and doing every single day that they get up and go to work, and have a very much a strong passion for it. And yeah, like you mentioned, shares that passion with the Half Century of Progress Board and those that put that on, and then the people that attend there as well. Definitely very much in the veins of the Beck's Hybrids company and specifically the family.
Well, I know the crop went in a good fashion, good planting on the base there where the show is held. We'll keep our fingers crossed for continued good development, and we look forward to seeing those old pickers, old pull-type pickers, mounted corn pickers going through there and harvesting the Beck seed there at the Half Century of Progress later this summer.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're excited to be there. I believe we're going to have maybe one of Sonny's original tractors that he purchased at the show there as well. And several other of our employees that are going to be there, maybe bringing some of their equipment as well. So excited to be a part of it, and then also to maybe contribute and bring some old equipment over ourselves. So definitely looking forward to it.
Well, the corn, that Beck's corn, is tasseling there on the air base at Rantoul, Illinois, to get ready for the crop harvest of those old machines moving through the fields. That's the 26th through the 29th of August. Now, that's the weekend before the big show, the Farm Progress Show, August 30th and September 1st and 2nd at Decatur, Illinois. Well, whatever is on tap for you over the next few days, we hope you work safely in the week ahead. On behalf of Mike Pearson, Orion Samuelson, I'm Max Armstrong. Have a great week and so long. Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone. You never farm alone. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communication in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.